Classical Conversations presents Refining Rhetoric with CEO Robert Bortons, a podcast where faith, business, politics, and classical education meet. Join us as we use the classical tools of rhetoric to seek truth in every arena of life.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Refining Rhetoric. Today, we're going to be talking about back to school and things that homeschoolers can teach any parent on education and really about using the resources around us. We'll also be talking about how AI tools are starting to be used for teacher, and is that something that could benefit homeschoolers or not? That's the news for today. So, Chris, take us to this first article.
Yeah, so it's a really cool article you sent me this morning by Psychology Today. Make back to school better with what homeschoolers do. Take us through that, Robert.
Yeah, so of course, it's back to school. Most of us may have been in now for a month or so, getting into our rhythms. But I thought these were good reminders for homeschooling families and really anyone with kids. The first one they came to was utilize community resources. And I think that's one of the things that really makes homeschooling so powerful is that we have to find our own resources. You know, we aren't in a public school building where they're just serving up resources or we have someone to go to. It's like on us to go and find what's around us. And there's so many things that are local that we can take advantage of.
So now let's talk about their second topic. Nature is not just for recess.
Yeah, so I think, growing up myself, after lunchtime typically, or when we got our chores done, my mom told me to go play in the woods and don't come back until dinner. The fact is, like, our minds and our bodies, especially as we're young, grow and mature when we're having fun, when we're in play modes, when we're relaxing. And so our mind is a lot like a muscle where, if you worked out, you need time that actually destroys your muscle. And it's the process of rebuilding itself that makes you stronger. And so for us and students, it's not just go outside for recess or play, but it's actually a part of the learning adventure. And so going to hike a waterfall and talking about the different trees we're seeing or the different animals we're seeing. And okay, that's a frog. Is that a reptile or an amphibian? And then talking about those things. And so for us as homeschoolers, it's really important that life around us is part of that learning experience. And of course, sometimes you're sitting down, working out a workbook or reading some original source documents or watching a movie or something on a subject, but it really is leading and learning outside of the classroom that really gets things to stick home.
I actually, if I can, I'd like to emphasize the being outside part of this too. I mean, yes, get out of the classroom, but there's a myriad of benefits for like far gazing and looking at things farther away from you than, the things inside of your home. As far as like de-stressors, actually, we have a myopia epidemic where people are just looking at screens all day long. And so they're losing the ability to see things really far away. And so for kids especially, any time outside is good time for them.
Yeah. And of course, we also have a health epidemic with obesity being a huge issue. And again, the more you're outside, the more you're moving, the less likely you're to, be obese and have some of those issues. Obviously, there's some people who just have, chemical imbalances that, just part of this sinful world we live in. But most people could be significantly healthier if they're just getting outside. And that's going to have really long-term benefits for the student, even as they get into adulthood.
All right, let's move on to their third point. Parents are teachers too.
Yeah, of course they are. That's what we know as homeschoolers. But even us, sometimes we forget that we are their best teacher. We can say, oh, let's outsource this, or I don't really know this. I don't like it. And, honestly, like my wife was a school teacher for 10 years, and she realized that really what they taught her was classroom management. And, parents, you taught your kids how to tie their shoes. You taught them to talk. I mean, that's a pretty big thing to be able to do. Many of you, hopefully all of you, taught them how to read. Maybe if you send them to preschool or first grade, maybe they helped out with that. But ultimately, as parents, all of those things are your responsibility. And you didn't have a degree in reading, most likely, or a degree in speech therapy. You just played with your kids and you love them. And that's really what homeschooling is. But one of the reasons that homeschooling can be hard is we don't know everything, right? You can't be a subject matter expert everywhere. And that's why it's so important to be in communities, to have co-ops, to find like-minded individuals who can help you. But always remember that you're their first teacher and that you're their best teacher. And so these ideas from here, I think, are a good reminder for all of us that if we are homeschooling, we got a little bit of a leg up on the rest of society because of these lifestyle choices that we've made. But I think technology, too, can start helping parents feel more comfortable being their teachers. So, Chris, what's our second article for today?
Second article I'm seeing is Government and Technology, govtech.com. They have an article that says how education technology companies pitch AI to teachers.
Yeah, it's interesting because one of the things that, we have as our principles at Classical Conversations is, kids don't need to be in front of screens learning, that we need to have relationships. Jesus was embodied here on earth. He had his 12 disciples that he was mentoring, that he was pouring into. And that, it's just human nature that we become like our mentors. And so if we're being mentored or educated by a machine, that's really going to turn our young people into adults that are less human, that have more issues, that have more difficulty in this world that we live in. And so we really believe that as we mature, as we become adults, that yes, there is a good and proper place for technology and education. As interested adults, technology can be great, but disinterested children need to have an interested adult to help them fall in love with a subject. And so I was glad to see that even public school teachers are pushing back on using AI tools in the classroom. So these AI companies are actually starting to pitch and create products for teachers, which I think could be beneficial to the homeschooler. And so some of these are like Khan Academy just rolled out a digital tutor called Khan Mingo. I was at an event where Khan rolled this out and I got to see it for the first time. It was really cool and interesting. One of the things he said from stage was, it'd be great if all of our kids had a one-on-one educational experience with a mentor who loved them. But that's just not where we are. And I turned to my wife, who was also there, and say, it's almost like God knew what he was doing when he gave kids a mom and a dad. So even these global leaders recognize that homeschooling, that type of education is ideal. And they're trying to use AI, but they're not thinking about this greater idea of we turn into our mentors. They're just kind of turning a blind eye to that. But what is interesting is that they're making more things for teachers that could help with grading papers, preparing lessons plan, filling out paperwork. Now, homeschoolers, luckily in most states, don't have to fill out a lot of paperwork. But I could see where some of these AI tools will eventually maybe make parents more comfortable finding answers and helping kids and subjects that they're not as familiar with. And so I could see AI being helpful there in the future, but not at the moment, not where AI or really these language learning models are at the moment. So it'd be interesting to see how these tools are developed and if there are ways to make homeschoolers feel more comfortable or help the homeschooling parents really in areas where they might not have as much expertise. So more to come. We are definitely not developing any AI education online platforms for students at this time at Classical Conversations, because we're all about that in-person community.
I think it's really fascinating that we're talking about the AI adoption in the public school system, because we're at a crossroads. The AI tools are coming. This is the worst they're ever going to be, and they're going to swallow up institutions. And so when you think about what the public school system, how they see these AI tools coming in, it's about resource management. It's about facilitating out of scarcity and making sure that the teacher can run a classroom with a lot of students and not have to spend too much time on them. And that's so diametrically opposed to how we want to educate our children. We want them to be educated out of an abundance, usually of love, that we're sharing with this child and helping them to understand and grapple with the world. And it's great. We want everybody to have a specialized, perfect tutor that understands the way they think. But it's through the fighting with and understanding that not everyone's perfect, that when you get a really good teacher as a kid, you realize that that's how you love others, is by trying to lower yourself and understand how they think and help them to see things the way that you need them to.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just another, like, our children's souls to be nurtured or products to be measured. One of the things that this Conmingo thing does, so like obviously they're focused on math. So if the student gets similar math problems wrong, then they'll start making them easier or going back a level, which would be good because maybe they're not understanding fractions or something or what to do. And so the technology or the system will make the questions easier to where they are and try to build them back up with what they're getting wrong. And then the same thing on the student who understands the materials. Well, he can move along faster. And then you have this almost hall monitor in the classroom who's just, Betsy, you're not getting this right, helping her out, or, oh, Mark, you're so far ahead. So, I mean, there's some of that individualized education that can be provided, but it's through these language learning models, these AI models, and it's still dehumanizing education. And the purpose of education really should be to pass the soul of one generation onto the next and to help students see truth, beauty, and goodness. And I don't think these AI computers are going to do much but make a better workforce for big businesses because they'll be able to get more efficient at doing things, which is great, but they're not going to have that hole in their soul filled through this educational experience.
I mean, you make a really good point, Robert. As we move towards this hyper-specialized educational sphere, there's been a lot of talk about, what exactly are the outcomes that we're looking for in any area of life, but particularly in education, that we want to see sort of an equity of outcome as opposed to equality of opportunities. And so we're not necessarily going to see students pulling ahead in classrooms as much as we're going to see everybody held back. Maybe the specialized tutor will allow for some of that, divergence of the students based on their predispositions and capabilities. But one of the questions I think, and you actually got this at the AMA last week, we didn't actually get into the Ask Me with this question in particular. But how do you approach tutoring or teaching a child with neurodivergencies that doesn't fit in with the rest of the group perfectly, that doesn't understand things the exact same way?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we live in a sinful world and we're fallen, and we have people on all sorts of different brain waves and lengths and different disabilities, different opportunities, and it makes it so that we have an opportunity really to show Christ's love. And I know at Classical Conversations, some of the best letters we get here at the home office is just, from parents who said, my kid was kicked out of school or didn't have any friends at school. He's diagnosed with, whatever 3 or 4 letter acronym the doctors are pushing. And, they came to CC and just, the people embraced him. He's, their behaviors have changed. They're getting better. So, I mean, I think some of the aspect is, again, we need to understand that all of our brains are flawed and none of us are perfect except for Jesus Christ. Now, there's a wide spectrum, and of course, there's a number of acceptable behaviors and there's unacceptable behaviors, and there's people that have more difficulty controlling some of those behaviors that are more disruptive to a classroom than others. I think in a Classical Conversations model and a homeschooling model, the fact that we're not sitting down in a seat for 8 hours a day, every single day in a classroom helps mitigate some of those issues because there's that natural being able to stand up and get around and be active. And then also just that opportunity to always bring something positive to class, whether you're behind or ahead, to help the group get better. And I think there's some opportunity there for just humility and for us to be able to share the love of Christ more. So classical education is definitely a pathway for those with, different challenges with their brain to exceed expectations, because that's what we hear from families that are doing it all across this our country and I'm sure the globe. But it's also an opportunity for those of us who are around there to be helpful to that parent and lift them up, and to really, they're probably dealing with things that other parents don't have to deal with, and so it's an opportunity for us to maybe give that parent a break, or let them know that, hey, yeah, maybe Johnny acts up a little bit more than every other kid, but our kids act up too. And so it's just an opportunity to be the community that Christ has called us to be. Chris, thanks for bringing that question and facilitating our discussion today. I hope everyone has enjoyed this episode. If you wanted to hear the other questions that I answered in our AMA, just go back to episodes and you can hear those. And we'll definitely do some ones in the future. I'd love to hear your comments on AI. Is there any place in AI for education? Is it just for teachers? Can students benefit from it? And should we be sitting our kids in front of computers for 8 hours a day and having them just learn from there? Or is it important to have that human interaction on a daily basis? Love to hear your comments. Until next time, share this episode with a friend. Be sure to subscribe, and God bless. Hey everyone, I want to briefly interrupt this program to tell you about one of our newest Copper Lodge Library releases, Pride and Prejudice. It is a resource that our families read in the Challenge program. Our Classical Conversations multimedia company has produced this new Copper Lodge edition of this beloved, beautiful book that so many of us love and enjoy. Me not being one of those as a teenage male, not my favorite one that my mom required me to read, but as an adult, I definitely appreciate the story much more. And it's a beloved classic novel. And the wonderful thing about the Copper Lodge Library books is it has footnotes that include, definitions, pronunciations, historical context, and really just helps bring the story to life, as well as wide margins so that students can take notes and really have that conversation with the author. And I bet I would have enjoyed these books much more as a teenage male had I had these details provided for me in the books that I was reading. So students will be discussing Pride and Prejudice inside of our Classical Conversations communities. And of course, for those who might not be in CC, it's a wonderful book that you should include in every curriculum. So you can learn more about the Copper Lodge Library series at copperlodgelibrary.com and go to classicalconversationsbooks.com to purchase one today. Now back to the show.
Welcome to Classical Crypto with Will today. Want to cover two things real quickly. We've talked a lot about Donald Trump and his views, his changing views on crypto and RFK and some of just what's happening in their political parties and camps. So I'm going to touch briefly on Kamala Harris, what we're kind of seeing coming out of her camp, those around her, her advisors, what's going on. It's very confusing. And then we're going to dive into XRP. We finally have a ruling by Judge Torres, which I'm excited to talk about. But first of all, Kamala Harris. She is the Democratic nominee, which is nuts. Not a lot of people saw that coming, I don't think. And then recently, when the Bitcoin conference was happening this year in Nashville, Trump had been speaking for a long time. And then when Kamala thought she was become the nominee, she last minute contacted Mark Cuban and said, hey, give me a spot. Like, I want to speak. I want to talk to everyone in crypto, which was a surprise to crypto because they're like, Kamala's been trying to shut us down. She's heavy into regulating the space, all this stuff. And 24 hours later, so they were going to get her in to speak, and then she slammed the door and said, I can't be there. I don't know why. It was just strange. It's kind of weird. I think that she was trying to capture she saw that Trump was going and wanted to kind of thwart that. And then it's been back and forth, like a pro-crypto statement. But then recently, it looks like the two advisors who she would likely have in her cabinet are coming from the Biden team. And Biden has had a strict crackdown on crypto mindset. At this point, Bitcoin's an ETF, Ethereum's an ETF. We're moving into a digital direction. It's just how much regulation, strict taxes and Biden had his kind of hand on the throat of crypto the last 4 years. And if Kamala continues to have these advisors, just have them come from Biden's camp into hers, I believe, and she was a prosecutor, I believe she just wants to have crypto by the neck. It will not be innovative and as free as if Trump was elected into office. So no matter who you're voting for, I believe that's crypto will most likely be more free and innovative under Trump and have more restrictions under Kamala. The price will probably go down, but it's not going away. So that's my take. It's been back and forth, which is strange, but now we're finally seeing true colors that she is not for crypto, not for the innovation, and will restrict it. So that's my opinion of watching closely what's happening in the political arena. Now, XRP, on August 7th, Judge Torres came out saying, hey, we're ending the lawsuit. XRP is not a security. Ripple is getting a penalty for sales that's complicated on something else they did. It's $125 million. I think for Ripple, that's kind of a drop in the bucket. So they will most likely pay the penalty. And at that point, if neither party appeals her decision, boom, we're set. So XRP, it's amazing. I've been waiting for that moment for a while. It does have legal clarity at this moment. They just need to pay the fee and then get past the appeal status, which is fantastic. That would actually mean that Ripple and XRP would technically be the only cryptocurrency in the United States that has legal clarity. And they're kind of being seen as a trailblazer in the industry. So it seems like other cryptos will fall under that category, but that is a massive win for crypto and for the industry. So I'm very excited about that. If you're following crypto and you're pro-crypto, pro-democracy, pro-decentralized finance instead of one centralized asset that can be manipulated and inflated by the government, that should be exciting to you that happened. So anyways, none of this has been financial advice, but keep an eye on this sector. It is growing, even under leaders that are trying to restrict it. This has been Classical Crypto with Will. Look forward to speaking with you next time.
Thank you for listening to Refining Rhetoric with Robert Bortons. Want more? Make sure to subscribe so you won't miss an episode. You can also follow us on social media to continue the conversation. And visit classicalconversations.com/rhetoric to find out how you can join a local homeschool community.